Good evening. Welcome to the March 2nd, 2016 Board of Directors, RSU 14 meeting. We are in the Wyndham Council Chambers. The time is 6:33. Mr. Superintendent, can I have a roll call, please?
Sure can. Kate Brooks.
Here.
Eric Colby. Here. Jennifer Fleck. Diana Forsling.
Here.
Marge Gavoni.
Here.
Pete Hensler.
Here.
Jen Moore.
Here.
Don Dillon. Jerry Keane Dwyer.
Here.
And Sierra Yost.
Here. Okay, if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have no adjustments to the agenda this evening. I will open it up to public input. Seeing there is no public to give a public input, we will close public input. First on the agenda is the report of the secretary for minutes, to approve the minutes. If I could please have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes of the February 3rd, 2016 meeting.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any comments? Anything on the meeting? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? Any abstentions? One abstention.
I'll abstain too,
Oh.
'cause I wasn't there either. So.
2 abstentions. Okay,
Move to approve the minutes of the February 24th, 2016 meeting.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments from the board? Seeing none. All those in favor? It is unanimous. The minutes are approved. First on the agenda this evening is our Director of Facilities, Bill Hanson. If you would like to please come up. He will give us an update on the final plan for the Wyndham Primary School bus loop. Put mine in the car. I don't need it. Thank you. I think you're all set with your mics.
Hi.
I think they're on.
Hi, good evening. Bill Hanson, Director of Facilities. What you have in front of you is the latest concept drawing for the changes of the bus loop and parent drop-off at the primary school. Note a few changes that have occurred since you last saw it. They're kind of minor in detail, but they're actually really important. If I can start up on the right-hand side, which says North End Parking Lot. That's the parking lot that's currently being used right now for the parent drop-off. Staff brought to us a concern that they needed to have access to get to the track. And when it becomes a teacher parking area, they need to have that. So you see there now there is a dedicated walkway that will be created, and we're going to move the access point to the track so it lines up with that. You can see right now that the white shaded area that's above it is the actual access point. So as part of this work this summer, that's all going to line up so that it is one direct access all the way across. So that was a good catch, good pickup. You see right now we're calling for 142 staff parking spaces, 59 parent parking spaces, 9 ADA. Based on the parking space study that we did, the numbers we came up with at that time were 137 for staff parking, 50 for parent parking, 187 total. So I feel that the numbers we have here are going to be sufficient to meet what we need. And that was just a typical day we looked at. So I'm not going to say that we've done 300 days worth of studies and we know it's perfect. But I feel good that the numbers we have designed here, we've tried to push every possible parking space available we have on the space that we're looking at. As we continue, if you come down to the bus lane area, the only thing you're going to see which is different is down on the return of the bus lane, you're going to see there's a gated roadway. That gated roadway allows EMS access to get through that should they need to. There would be a gate closed and locked in that location, but That has been added. And we pushed that bus lane as much as we can towards the access to the other side. Try to keep those buses nicely straight in front of the school, which provides really good visible access. One area that is still will require a little bit of work is the exact location of the sidewalks. They're conceptual right now. Those have not been finalized. But for the purposes of the project, we don't need to do it this time. So we will be working with staff and try to resolve that a little bit. The intention is to keep some nice green areas in front of the school that I think would look nice, as well as those areas will be serving as space for groundwater treatment. Some of our filters will be in those areas. And the intention will be that those areas will be slightly lower than the pavement, so if you go to the primary school today, you'd find when we had snow, it melted off across the walkways. And that area said the walkways would be slightly higher, so the melting would go towards those water collection areas and into the filter system. If we continue to the left side of it, I think the concept here was pretty much the same before, but a couple things were changed. You can see the blue cars denote staff parking. Before we looked at this, we were going to use that as parent drop-off. That now is all going to be dedicated to staff parking, so there's no walking across that travel area. So you've got, I think it's 6 parent stop and drops that are you come to first, that are along the building. Then you continue, you see there's what we call a drop and go. So those cars would be driving in, dropping and going. It's single lane traffic, so there's no passing. So you're going to be dropping and going, dropping and going. So you're going to literally be dropping your child off. Now, if there aren't one of those 5 spaces available, you can see we've got the parking in the back parking lot that's designated for parents that they wanted to stop and walk their child in for more time. There's that space available as well. But really, this side of the property is going to be primarily for parent access before and after school. So that's pretty much the changes that have occurred. As far as timeline for budget goes, I did approach Grover. Grover has the new plan set. I did bring copies of the new plan sets. If you'd like to have copies of them, I'll be happy to give them to you to look at. Probably don't take your time tonight to do that, but I have them here, and I'm happy to leave them for you and take them and take a look and see what your thoughts are. I'm expecting pricing back from them sometime in the next week, and I'll bring that. My plan was to forward the information on to the Finance Committee and Facilities Committee when I have that, and then from there we'll move ahead as to what our next steps are with the full board. So,
Bill, is there someplace online that folks can go and see this? Have we got it anyway?
I could very, very happy to put that on my facilities webpage. We could put it on the primary school and put those drawings up. Absolutely, I could. That's a great idea.
Because I'm sure people will be interested, and it's nice to give them a heads up, let them know ahead of time. Was it?
I am a little concerned about where the cost numbers are going to come back. But at this point in time, I don't have the numbers. My plan would be to provide a recommendation with alternatives based on the cost figures that come back as to what our next steps would be. So, preliminary conversations with Stantec and the DEP. This looks like this is a minor amendment. They don't see this as being a big issue. If it becomes a full site plan review, that's a couple problems for us. That means we could not do the work this summer because that's a whole probably year worth of permitting. So that is there is a kind of a concern there if it goes that way. I'm hopeful it's not going to, because we're not changing the impervious surface. And if I show you the main plans, what you'd see is the staff parking we have set up there almost lands directly onto where the current bus lane is right now. So I'm hoping that's going to also help with our project costs, because we're not changing the area that's designed to support vehicles very much. The bus lane is new. That is going closer to the school, but the staff parking is really landing near where those 2 lanes are right now, which I think helps. And I really feel strongly that the changes we're making along the side of A House, it's addressing a bunch of issues where it drops down. That sidewalk there is in poor condition. This plan here is going to address a lot of shortcomings that we have now, so I think it's a good improvement, but I'm concerned about whether that might push our costs up a little bit. I'm hopeful that the changes in the design that I think are optimizing the amount of curb we're putting in and the disruption of the soil will help offset some of that.
Do you have an idea yet of what the timeline would look like for construction?
Well, I'll give you my perfect world. Numbers come
I
back.
like your perfect
Numbers come back at a level that we can afford within the capital reserve that we have. is that the school gets out on Thursday, and on Friday, we have equipment landing on site, and dirt's moving on Friday afternoon, okay? Now Eric's smiling because he knows that things are very hard to make work that way, because life becomes challenging, but the good news is this has been a great winter in that we haven't had many snow days, so it hasn't pushed us further into the summer schedule. So from a weather standpoint, it's been a perfect winter to follow up with this project. So we really have to make a decision within really probably the middle of May to start getting materials on order to make this all happen. I still think it's very achievable, provided the numbers come back within a realm we can support.
Great.
It's going to be exciting. I'll have more gray hair when I'm done, but it'll be worth it. I'm hoping within the next week. So, and I say that, you know, how that week becomes week and a half to two, but do my best to get you as soon as I have it, those numbers with some options.
Does everybody have their mic on? Just double check, thank you.
Did they use, when you were talking with whoever, did they use language that made you indicate that there may be an increase?
I talked with PDT about what they've seen for construction cost increase index, and we looked at some of those things, and my concern is that the scope has changed a fair amount from the original design. I think in some cases we've simplified the scope, and I am trying to look at what our total impervious surface is. I don't think it's really changed, may have reduced, because remember the big circles we had before were huge. So that's all come out. So, you know, I'm hoping that offsets some of the cost that we're going to incur on the side of the A house, because we are bringing that up in some cases quite a fair amount of fill to go in there to get that to be more level. But if you drive down there, if you go and look, it's probably about a 4 to 5 foot elevation change in the low spot to the two sides. So certain that sidewalk is an up and down from the low point. So
This has been the busiest construction winter in years, so.
yeah. So they did indicate that this project would fit well into the schedule. So they were positive with that goes, and I did explain to them that, you know, the process would be that the numbers they put together would go back to the board, and the board would make a decision at the point in time whether we were to work with them or to rebid. So they understand what's at stake.
We all set?
Yeah, I just was wondering, Bill, is there's still only going to be the one parent access point at the main office? Or is there going to be any kind of other buzz-in system from entrance at any point? I'm just thinking that if a parent's coming in to volunteer for 2 hours or whatever, there's no place close to that front entrance that they can park on this, or is there a plan for that?
Yeah, all the parents come in through the front office, and there's a lot of reasons why we want to keep that. Parents would have the opportunity to park within those 5 or 6 spots that are along the side of A house, because those we would hope would not be used during the school day per se.
Okay, so that's not a timed area right there, that's just kind of...
That would be open for parent parking. With primarily drop off
Visitor.
in the morning. I got to work on a whole bunch of signage, and you know that will be only as good as how well we can enforce it. But the idea would be that would be open to be used during the day for parents to come in. And there is a bit of a walk. You are correct with that. But we really want to have parents coming in through that main entrance where we have our ability to get the business badges to them and what have you. Now the children will be coming in through that A house side where they're dropped off, but there'll be staff supervising that as they are now. So.
That is actually where they would park now anyway, for anybody coming in during the daytime, visitor, or parents, or whatever.
There'd be sometimes during the day, they'd be
Sure.
happy they could park there, actually, the way I've seen it down there.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any other questions? Dawn?
Do you need more
Great.
copies of the color drawing? Do you have, you don't see any copy?
I think everybody has one?
Okay.
Okay, great.
So my path forward, when I get the numbers, I'll meet with Mr. Davis, and we'll kind of go through them, put together a recommendation with options, and I'll send that to we can send it to the whole board, or you do it to the finance committee? How do you want to handle that, Don? Okay, so that's where our path forward, so I'll do that as quickly as I can as soon as I receive the numbers, which I hope are within a week. Again, I don't have a firm date on that, so I'll move ahead as quickly as I can.
And this is, I I don't know, probably a small item, because not everybody knows to go on to a website to see something, but would it be worthwhile to get one of these, maybe a little bit bigger, to put it in the lobby of the primary school?
Be happy
Would
to
that
do that.
hurt?
We could put a display board down there. And I also am pretty certain that I can work with our IT folks to put it up on the monitor that comes up as you come in as
Oh,
well.
good.
I'll
Okay.
do both.
That'd be neat.
Well, it's back to Kate, God bless her, communicate. The more you can communicate, the better off we are.
Okay.
Excellent. Jerry?
Do we have a time in our next meetings that if we need to vote on this, we could add it to the agenda? Do we have to vote?
If there's a change, I think you have so many meetings scheduled, probably one of those budget nights you can squeeze something.
Okay,
if you-
and that won't
Oh,
be
we
a
could
problem,
always-
being able to add something?
we could
Okay,
always-
Just,
We could always fit it in.
okay, all right, just wanted to be sure you don't have to let people know weeks in advance, whatever. Okay, good.
I think we are all set, Bill, unless somebody else has anything else. I thank you. Thank you for all the work.
Okay.
Your consistent ongoing work. It never ends, I know.
I think we've had a lot of great input from staff and parents, and I really am, I'm disappointed it's taken us this long to get here, and now, it's one of those things that I wish we could get that done sooner, and that's no reflection on anyone, it's just, you'd like to have it done, and I'm really glad we didn't build what we had designed,
Right.
Rev 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, because I think we would have been really unhappy with that, so thank you for working with me on this project.
So sometimes it does help to wait.
Yeah. In this case, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Okay, if we could have a 5-minute recess, please? superintendent, Mr. Prince, will give us the 16-17 budget presentation. Thank you, Mr. Prince.
Thank you, Marge. It's great to be here, and I'm very excited to present FY17 budget. First of all, I would like to thank Don Davis and all the staff at central office for the work behind what you're going to see tonight. It really takes a team to put a budget together. And also my administrators in the building have worked quite hard since December to come up with a proposed budget. So kudos to everybody behind the scenes. Proposed budget starts really with our mission of the district, and we're really excited to, probably in a month or two, come back before you and show you the new strategic plan that you will be voting on. And I just want to remind the public that the strategic plan really is the umbrella of the work that we do, and very much the budget has to support the strategic plan. So I just mentioned that because we're coming off the old one and going on to the new one. And we're very mindful that we want to make sure that our budget definitely aligns with the strategic plan. As you very well know, that in the RSU, we're quite large district, particularly when you look across the state. We're the 7th largest district in the state of Maine. And our numbers continue to just grow a little bit. We're kind of maintaining, but for next year, we're probably up around 20, 25 students. So I just want to mention that. In addition tonight, what I'd like to do is talk about the challenges, talk about the good value within the organization, and then really get into the nitty-gritty of the budget lines and talk about what the budget consists of. So budget challenges, what you have before you on this picture kind of tells a story that the districts that are in the red have not been able to step up and continue to increase school funding. And that 25 of the 46 states are providing less general aid per student. And I think that's just, again, one of the challenges that we're faced with. And unfortunately, Maine is within that red area, and it's been going on since 2008. In addition, if we compare ourselves to other states in New England, as you can see, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut typically has tried to make an effort to increase school funding, but in the state of Maine, we've actually gone the other way, and we've decreased the amount of money that the Department of Ed, state of Maine, can give to schools. So Maine has cut an investment in K through 12 education by 13.3% since 2008. It's a deeper cut than 38 other states. In this slide, another challenge, if you look at this, is that if you look at the state of Maine at the bottom there, we're minus 2.1% when you compare student funding between FY15 compared with FY14. And if you look at the dollar change per student funding compared to FY15 compared to FY14, it's down $101. So the story behind this is, unfortunately, in the state of Maine, we've just not been able to increase school subsidy for districts. Other challenges that the state of Maine has had a law to work towards paying 55% of the cost of education. And unfortunately, they've not been able to get to that mark, and they're at approximately 46%, with the intention that they really wanted to get to 55%. And again, I'm not here to blame anybody, but I just, in dire times in the recession, it's just been really challenging for the state to get to that 55% mark. The second point on the slide is that during the 14th and 15th year, the state did promise that the money that would come from the Oxford County Casino would be distributed through the school formula, and that never did happen. And we were kind of excited to think it might happen, but again, it never did. So that was another challenge that we faced with back along. Why does our budget appear to be higher than previous years is a good question. And I think everybody knows that oftentimes there's many mandates that come out of Augusta and they're unfunded. And that seems to be a trend. And it's definitely a challenge for us. There's just so many bills that go before the legislature, and oftentimes there's no money attached when they pass a bill. In FY17, we incurred the following expense that was part of the previous years. And the story here is that the Maine State Teacher Retirement Fund, part of that cost now comes out of our district. And that really had an impact for us. It was just over $427,000. So the example here is that we could have walked in with a budget around 3.24%, but given that cost with the teacher retirement, we'll be showing you later in the slides that our budget's around 4.25%. So that's just an example of another shift of costs that went from Augusta to the local people, school systems. In addition, it's no surprise, and I think many districts are facing facility concerns, and it's hard to keep up with building new schools when there's no really state money to do that. So again, challenges for us. The next slide, not to rehash our old history, but we had 3 curtailment years where the state took money away, part of our subsidy, and that totaled $1.7 million. And that's money that was earmarked for us, and then halfway through the year, like in 2013, they came back and took just under $200,000 from us. So we had to freeze the budgets. And those were real challenging times because we really anticipated having that money. In addition, state subsidy, I think if you look at the very bottom yellow box, if you compare FY09 subsidy to FY17, the increase is just over $33,000. When you think about all those years, and you think about back in FY09, we were getting, $14,784,000. And then in FY17, we're looking at $14,750,000. And so very little extra money has come our way when you look at the history of the state subsidy figures. It's just another challenge for us to be mindful of. In addition, one of the best journals that I receive is PDK, a Gallup poll magazine that does a lot of research across education. And in 2005, that journal, which I have right here, talked about how first of all, Americans really love their local school. If they have a neighborhood school, they just love their schools. And the second thing they talked about that struck me is that Americans once again named the lack of financial support as the biggest problem facing our schools in their communities. And this has been consistent research for 10 years. So when we talk about districts, as school leaders, when we talk about the challenges and that we truly don't have enough money, it's a national researched dilemma. And I just put that in there because, again, I think it's important to know that this is just not in Wyndham, Maine, Raymond, Maine, state of Maine, it's across the country. Other budget challenges, a little history here when we consolidated 2009 to 2016, particularly during the recession. We have reduced quite a few positions in the past, particularly administrative restructuring, and that came to about had a huge impact within our building. And I just mention that because I think sometimes people think administratively there's too many administrators floating around in certain districts, and I'll show you later, but compared to how we compare to the state of Maine, we're not high at all. And we've been good soldiers and done our part to reduce administrative costs, but part of that has been a challenge for us. Just the state reporting alone can take my secretary all fall to just practically do all the state reports. So, just wanted to mention that. Another challenge is the fixed costs when we walk into a budget. And it can be anywhere from 1.2 million to 1.5 million. So if, let's just say you're walking in at a budget of 4%, right off the cuff, 1.5 million of that 4 million is just fixed costs, salaries, energy, electricity. Just like when you run your own household, you have those fixed costs. In addition, the recent legislation is, again, I mentioned earlier, the teacher retirement, which was quite a hit for us, and that's just over $732,000. And so the main teacher retirement system is 1.6% of our budget. And again, in the old days, we didn't have to worry about building that cost into our budget. So in the perfect world, what we need is an additional 20 million in school aid. And you'll see in the paper, there's a lot of discussion about that, which way to go. There's a couple bills before government officials to really consider which way to go with that. And why we need these is that the burden is going to go back on the taxpayers, quite honestly. The mill rate is going to go from 8.2 to 8.44 mills, which could represent a $20 million increase in local property taxes statewide. And that's just concerning to us because, you know, we're mindful of people paying taxes and having increases in taxes. And from our perspective, it's a shift. So the good news, hopefully, we'll get more money to go into school aid. And just a reminder, where will the money go? 12 million is an increase in the cost of education statewide. 6 million will go more to charter schools due to enrollment increases and the additional 2 new charter schools that are going to be coming on next year. And also the statewide and property values, the drop in that has an impact as well. So those were the challenges. The good value, because I always think it's important when you present the budget to talk about what you get with the dollars that you end up receiving from the taxpayers. And I think if most people know that Wyndham and Raymond is a very good district. We have dynamite staff. I'm so passionate about the entrepreneurial spirit. People do a lot with less, and people are very much working hard on proficiency diploma work and very strategic about that work. So the good value, just a few things I wanted to highlight. I think you probably have seen this, but our football and softball fields were notably recognized nationally for just being the best of the fields. And it's just nice to get that recognition, and kudos to our people who, under Bill Hansen's group, that take it seriously and work really hard on our fields. In addition, we have a lot of people who are writing grants and the community donations within the school department, and there's a list here of just all the good things that are going on with Raymond and Wyndham, and we value the opportunity to have people collectively work and try those new programs and get a little extra money. It doesn't take a lot of money to do the little things, and so we appreciate that. And this just shows from 2013 to 2016, we've just over $700,000 donated or through grants, which is significant. Good value, if you look at the RSU versus state average as far as per pupil costs, this is good and bad. This is not so good because we're not even at the state level where we should be as far as the per pupil costs. I suppose on the other side of the coin, people would say, you know, you're pretty efficient, you're doing a good job, you're trying to hold the costs down. But this has an impact. You know, the fact that we're not poor in our schools. We do have supply closets and we do have materials, but again, I think proportionally, when you look at how we compare to the state of Maine, our per pupil cost is still lower. If you look at our communities around us in the greater Portland area, this slide kind of tells the story that RSU 14 is sort of near the bottom, not at the very bottom, but definitely, again, below the state average. And we're not probably where we should be as far as per pupil costs. And I just think it's important for people to know that, again, a good value is that we're trying to hold the line and do a lot of good things for our students and for our staff. The next slide, coming back to the system administration expenditures, if you compare RSU 14 with other surrounding districts, I think we're pretty conservative, our numbers, and we're pretty much at the bottom, other than Scarborough. And I think we do a very good job, again, with the amount of money, or a little money that we're putting towards the administrative costs. And this really, again, took a hit during those recession years. Another good value is the essential program and services. And again, the state would like to get to the 55% funding, but they've not been able to. And just to kind of remind the public is, when you're given X amount of money from the state, and as a community, if you choose to have more foreign languages, or you're going to have a preschool program, or whatever you're going to have over and beyond the amount of money that you received, it's a choice. It's a choice in your community to spend more, and knowing that you want certain programs and services. So if you look at the RSU, you know, for the most part, we're still down at the bottom of the barrel here, that compared to our neighboring districts, more districts above us are definitely putting more money into the essential program and services. It's a local decision, it's a choice. And personally, I'd like to see more money, but at the same time, I think we're doing a really good job for the most part, what we can afford. And I'm really proud to think of what's going on in our schools. But I just put that slide up there just so people know that percentage-wise, with the essential program and services, we're pretty much near the bottom. Another good value, and this fluctuates from year to year, but our high schools with over 1,000 students, if you compare our high school with all the other big high schools, we're doing a pretty good job with the graduation rate. In fact, we have students that technically might step out of the high school and go to adult ed, but unfortunately, they're considered dropouts. So our if you really included the students that go to adult ed and graduate, our numbers would be higher. I still think we can do a better job than this, but compared to other high schools, I think we're doing a fairly good job, and we're just slightly below the state average, if you look at the very bottom there. So at this point in time, I'd just like to go into the budget and talk a little bit about that. As you know, the school board provided general direction to myself, the superintendent, earlier in the year. The administrative team worked collectively on the FY17 budget to ensure that we move forward towards our success for all. I'm here tonight to recommend to the board that our increase is at 4.25%, with the understanding that this is a process and that numbers could change. We may get more money from the state, and that certainly would make our increase perhaps go down. So it's early in the game, but that's where we're at this point in time. And the school board set dates for each cost center administrator to review their proposed FY17 budget. Tonight, obviously, we don't get into all the details, but just so the public knows, every administrator will be before the board, really drilling down with their budget and explaining the budget as far as what they're asking for or things that they're giving up. So that's more to come after this week. So our budget is $43,841,000, and we're up about 1.7% from last year, which again gives us a 4.25% increase. And again, I just want to stress again that this is a process, and that number could be changed as we move ahead in the next 2 months. Our budget a subsidy did go down for this year, about $562,000. If you've noticed in the paper, there's several districts across the state, 130 other districts, that have less money this year coming up than what we currently anticipated. And pretty much that's probably based on student enrollment and calculations of the tax valuations. So, but essentially, the state of Maine is flat funding education, and I'm concerned about that because, again, it just seems like historically, there's not been a lot of money, state subsidy, coming to schools. We've really taken a hit historically, and it was just concerning to me that we're down $562,000. That could change, obviously. So if you look at this next slide, the story here, again, looking at our total budgets from year to year, and at the very bottom, the yellow box, the average budget for RSU 14 from 2009 to 2017 increased an average of 1.54% annually. So that's pretty, low. I mean, that's not a lot of money, and we've done well considering. But again, we've been in these tough times, and I just wanted to visually show that again so people understand what we've been up against. Our money, pretty much where the money comes from, we get a good chunk from the local contribution, and which is just over 48%, and then the state subsidy is almost 35%. So sometimes people don't know where our money comes, and I think it's important just to show that there's roughly 6 areas that in the pie where the money comes from. Our budget will be allocated, and this is just percentage-wise with each area, and again, you'll be hearing from the administrators that represent several of these areas, but visually, this just shows that regular ed instruction is where a good chunk of our money does go, and that's where it should go. We want to make sure that we have the best educational program, and that's where a good chunk of our money does go. So, as we kind of wind down with this presentation, again, I stress that our mission, Success for All, really drives a lot of this work. I'm just incredibly blessed and pleased to always see the good work that's going on in the district. Peter Pan this year with the high school, just amazing press with that whole play and drama. It was just wonderful to see the spirit behind that. Our sports program, just this year alone, won 7 MPA Good Sportsmanship banners, which, yeah, it's great if you can win and come in first place, but it's really more about the sportsmanship and what we're teaching students and how they can model that and represent that. And kudos to the high school students for doing that. The high school continues to work to make sure that we're pushing students in a reasonable way into AP advanced classes. The research shows that if students are able to take rigorous courses, it's going to prepare them better for college ready after high school. And sometimes, students might not stretch themselves, but I think the high school is really trying to make sure that more and more students have those opportunities. So I'm pleased to report that out. Jobs for Maine graduates, we've done a ton of work at the high school to really get students looking beyond high school. The college fair, had over 100 colleges where our students were able to attend and talk to people and start thinking about that whole piece. Nicole Sturgis is our college counselor, and kids drop in there all the time into her office just to touch base with her and talk to her about thinking about college and the next steps. And if it's not college, it might be, the military, it could be anything about jobs that they're thinking about after high school. backpack program, I put this in just because I think it's incredibly cool that we do a lot of community service, that education isn't just necessarily in the four walls of the classroom, and that we have notable recognition for making sure that students go home that need a backpack program, and kudos to RSU 14 for that. And then recently, our task group one is a committee on the proficiency diploma work, and they've been working this year to come up with some common principles. So when you hire people, or when you have classroom teachers that are currently working in the district, what are those important principles that you can work with from to make sure that you get into a place where students are engaged, where students are just so turned on with their work that they really have that ownership piece, that they're driving the work. And so these principles have been developed within the district, and the hope is that we're going to make this much more public, and again, that our classes will represent these principles. That's what we're really going to be shooting for. So that way, as a collective 500 employees, people know that this is what we're striving for, and that everybody understands that. And then the last slide is our wonderful curriculum director, Dr. Seuss, and today was Dr. Seuss's birthday, and I just put this in because I think much of the good work that's going on is coming from our curriculum department. It is about teaching and learning, and yes, we need more money, but the heart and soul is what's going on in the classroom. And if you look at these kindergarten students, they look so excited to see Dr. Seuss there today. And I just wanted to end on that note. And again, I appreciate your time. And this is the first night of the budget, and we got much more work to do in the future. And I'm sure by May we will have a budget to go before the towns, and I look forward to speaking with people if they have questions. We have the budget at the libraries, and we'll have it online. But if people have any questions about the budget, they can contact myself or Don Davis. Thank you for your time.
Sandy, do we have the cost center presentation schedule online?
I can check on that. We can put it on if it's not on.
Just so
Yep.
folks are aware of it
Yep.
ahead of time, so they can plan if there's a particular one, or all of them.
Right. We can
for
do
my
that.
company. Okay, great.
All set. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next on our agenda is policies. There are quite a few policies here that are going to require a second reading. Kate, before we start it, do you want to just give a little brief?
They're all police-related. Met with the police force, who we have a wonderful relationship with, and we have not had RSU policies for any of these, so it's time that we made them official.
Great, thank you. So if somebody would like to make a motion,
I move to approve the second reading of policy JIH, questioning and searches of students.
Second?
okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comments from the public? Seeing none, any comments from the board? All those in favor? It is unanimous. Next.
I move to approve the second reading of questioning and searches of students administrative procedure, file code JIH-R.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any comments from the public? Seeing none, any comments from the board? Okay, all those in favor? It is unanimous.
I move to approve the second reading of the school campus traffic policy, file code JLIF.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any comments from the public? Seeing none. Any comments from the board? All those in favor? It is unanimous.
I move to approve the second reading of the public conduct on school property policy, file code KFA.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Comments from the public? Seeing none. Comments from the board? All those in favor? It is unanimous.
I move to approve the second reading of the Relations with Law Enforcement Authorities Policy, which is file code KLG.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Any comments from the public? Seeing none, any comments from the board? All those in favor? It is unanimous.
I move to approve the second reading of the Relations with Law Enforcement Authorities Administrative Procedure, which is file code KLG-R.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any comments from the board? I'm sorry, any comments from the public? Seeing none. Any comments from the board?
I do just have one, on section C here. It reads, law enforcement authorities are responsible for ensuring that a student is informed of his or her rights to an interrogation. I think we need to say prior to an interrogation, so I would just insert prior there.
You have that?
I do.
Okay, so actually, you want to make an amendment to the,
I make a friendly amendment to the motion
Thank
to
you.
approve the policy, with the addition of the word prior in section C.
second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment? Approved. Okay, going back to the original policy, all those in favor of the policy as amended? It is unanimous. The next one.
I move to approve the second reading of the officer presence in the schools policy file code KLGA.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments from the public? Seeing none. Comments from the board? Seeing none. All those in favor? It is unanimous. All of the policies are approved. Okay. And we are ahead of schedule this evening. Next, we have one appointment. Could you just give us, just so the public, for just a brief explanation on this?
Yep, this is a new teacher that just became certified, given the current position, but since she served as a before.
Okay. Is this 1 year? This, this is just for the remainder of this year?
I think they were,
That's what it says. That's why I'm asking that.
I guess, 2005, 2006, we got 1 year. It is, so much.
So it's for the remainder. So it's to fill out this year. Okay. So if I could have a motion, please.
I vote to approve the following appointment for the remainder 2015-2016 school year. Ashley Godbout, teacher, high school, March to June 2016, Wyndham High School.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any comments from the public? Seeing none. Comments from the board? Seeing none. All those in favor? It is unanimous. Okay, committee reports. We'll go with facilities first, 'cause I'm sure it's most current.
We met prior to this meeting. We have continued our discussion about the direction we're going to consider for the middle school. We received planning decisions, demographic information. We really haven't studied it. We just received it today, actually. But generally, it appears that through 2025, 2026, there is a minimal rise in enrollment based on their calculations. So we will take that into consideration as we move forward as far as planning our facility needs. We plan on meeting again soon, and then hope to be before the board on April 27th to have a workshop so that we can have more dialogue about what we've discovered, possibly some recommendations. And by May, we hope to have from PDT the preliminary costs for different scenarios. So we will make sure then that we will communicate that with you as well. So a lot of work ongoing to address the middle school needs. We want to do it right. We want to keep you informed. So hopefully, by April 27th, you will get some information and then have some questions or comments about what we present.
Great, thank you. Jerry?
April 27th was not a scheduled meeting, so it's,
Oh.
we've added it on. So just
Okay.
for those who don't have it in their calendars, that's an added meeting.
And thank you
you.
for mentioning that. It's going to be a standalone. We're not going to have any other agenda items on it so that we can really concentrate on this and have it just a workshop and a give and take.
Yeah, and I'd like to just add that it's really important that that all board members try to make this meeting, because we've had small conversations, you know, Finance Committee, I'm sure, has talked about it, facilities, the board has talked about it a little bit. This will be the one meeting where we really want to try to iron some stuff out. And if you're not there, it's going to make it very, very difficult to try to bring you up to speed and to change the course of where we hope we get some direction for that night. So I would ask that everybody try as best they can to make that meeting. And again, that was April 27th, so.
Now, that's gonna be before we have financials, though, as far as financial costs?
Right.
Yes. We're just looking at what direction, what directions. We won't have a cost, but, you know, trying to pin it down. Go ahead, Kate.
Well, there's a couple things. We won't have the costs by then because we simply can't have them. You just can't get them that quickly because there's a lot of number crunching that has to go on. The other piece is we need to have more public dialogues as a board about this and get some feedback from you. And we've really only had one session. We do have some schematics for different options that we'll be presenting. But no, we will not have the financials. But we can't wait till May. We've got to, this train has been so slow.
It's almost going backwards.
We have got to move forward and get some direction from the board. We all realize that financials play a critical role in how we move forward, but there are a lot of other issues too to discuss, that we can discuss without those. So, I hear you. We need, show me the money. I get it.
But I also think that not having the money attached initially just lets us have
It's
a
almost better.
conversation that doesn't sway one right away in terms of difference in cost. So in some ways, not having numbers is, it's more theoretical what's there, and then the numbers certainly will drive the train. This very slow train is Kate, but I think in some ways not having that isn't gonna predispose us in any particular way.
Okay, great. Finance Committee?
We last met on January 20th, so a lot of this information's a little old. We will be meeting next week, however. So at that meeting, we talked about the new bus, which we actually all approved. We had an update on the John Andrews School demolition, which, as you know, already took place on January 11th. We talked about the preliminary budget impact of the pre-K program if we choose to move forward with that. And we also did a presentation here, so that one-time startup cost would be around approximately $130,000 if we choose to place that in the budget. And we just did planning for our Budget 101 little workshop, which we've now already had. So that was pretty much our last meeting in January.
Thank you. Policy?
Policy Committee is going to be meeting tomorrow. We will be discussing medical marijuana. There's been a lot of discussion in the media about schools addressing this. So I have sample policy, and there's a couple of districts that have already passed this policy that I'll be bringing before the committee, and then we'll be informing you how to proceed, whether we want to move forward with the policy or not. We're also scheduled for a Title I committee meeting the following week, and that's an update that has to be done. Christine Hessler, our curriculum director, will be guiding us through that process. And then finally, we have another meeting scheduled for facilities use, which is separate from the facilities committee and the facilities use policy is really getting a total revamp, and I've sent you all the minutes of our last meeting, and you can tell that it's really restructuring, looking at the use of our buildings, how can we still offer the use of our buildings to the public and yet still maintain good facilities that aren't getting worn out. And we'll be looking at the facility rental schedule. We've done a lot of work looking at various other districts, and we've had tremendous input from Marlene Bicknell, who drives the train really for facilities use from the community and does all the scheduling, and from Bill Hansen, and both of them have been very instrumental in informing us what our needs are, what our concerns are, and how we might craft a revised policy that better serves the district and the community.
Great, thank you. Donna, anything on adult ed? I don't think they've had, yeah, I don't think he had a meeting. Eric,
I can give you
technology?
Yeah, I just sent you guys these, what I've got in my hand just a minute ago. Apologize for, should have done it last week. But anyways, a couple of the things that they were talking about, or what they're working on right now is the disaster recovery. They've moved the servers down to the primary school, and they're working on getting cooling in there and getting the UPSs down there and kind of growing that server size. So all the data is being transferred over every day down to the other servers, so if one goes down, they've got all of their information. That was a big piece of it. Rita's getting ready for the testing in the spring. They're thinking ahead on that. They're talking about a student-only tech camp this year for students. It would be in June. Also working on main robotics and stuff, some neat stuff for kids that want to learn more of the technical aspects of things. They had an update on the iBoat, which has been, switched down to the primary school. I have not talked to Bob Aston, so I don't know all of that, but they are taking it over. They're going to name it. They're going to name it, and they're looking at putting together some type of maybe a field trip where they'll get a fisherman to, they'll say goodbye to it on the fisherman's boat. He'll take it out, and he'll launch it out by, Jordan Reef, Jordan Bay. It's going to be out of the way.
It can't be Jordan, isn't it?
That was the main thing, and he's looking at a lot of little, there's a ton of little things, and I don't know if I can explain it properly, but should be in your meetings, but they're always very busy, and always a lot of things they're adjusting, tweaking, or looking into for the future.
That's it, thank you. The technical schools have not had a meeting. In fact, we have one coming up the 17th. I haven't figured it out yet why there's never a meeting in February, but there isn't. So there is nothing there at the moment different that I'm aware of. Sierra High School?
Yep. Winter sports just finished up, and all the teams have really successful seasons. We had 2 teams go to the Science Bowl last Saturday, and one of them ended up winning the Sportsmanship Award at the Science Bowl, which is really exciting. And then this weekend, we're welcoming 8 schools into the high school for the Regional Drama Festival for the one-act play competition. A lot going on.
That is cool. That's really great. Sandy, we're going to hit you up for 2. Do you want to give a pre-K update first?
Yeah, pre-K, right now, as you know, this year we've been working on developing a pre-K program that possibly could happen for next year. Right now, it's not in the budget, but it might end up in the budget, depending upon if we get more state money. The idea is to really have the program next year up in RES, and reached out to the community. We talked to nursery schools. That went very well, very receptive. Kyle Rose really helped with that, to work with the nursery schools to make sure the questions are answered. So from now till, I would say, May or June, we're going to keep plowing ahead with the plan and see where we end up with the budget. If we have the money, then we'd love to hire the person in May, and that would be a teacher, and then really start getting the program up and running for September. So.
And I think at our last meeting, Christine's thought was that we will put it out there with a pending, hire somebody with a pending approval, or I forget what you call it. Yeah, because we don't want to miss that deadline of being able to try to get somebody on board, in case the board decides to go forward with it. Okay, so do you have anything as a superintendent that you'd like to?
I do. I just want to mention that Jeannie Riley, our nutrition director, was written up in the New England Journal for just really, it's a wonderful story. And I think the board may have seen a copy of it, but I'm just going to say a few quotes in here that what is going on in the Wyndham Raymond School District in the state of Maine. The kids are excited to come through the school lunch line. The school meal program has seen a 65% growth over the last 5 years. And they just talked about how other districts are struggling with participation and the numbers are going down. And Jeannie talks about, her staff and Sam the chef and how the kids are really connected with Sam and the importance of educating students about nutrition before you serve food and have them actually make some food. All these little things have really helped the program in the district. The Facebook advertising, really trying to sell what we have, the after-school cooking club. It just really cites everything about Jeannie and her staff, and I'm just really proud that she was recognized as the director for the state of Maine in the New England Journal. The other thing, this just came out the other day. If I could, I'd just like to read the letter. This is from David Roof, who's the executive director of Great Schools Partnership. Just so the public knows, our high school has worked with Great Schools Partnership to really help facilitate the work, the conversations about proficiency diploma. And so, anyhow, dear Sandy, I hope all is well and you're making this winter the best it can be. I wanted to officially let you know that Chris Howell and Christine Hessler have been selected as the New England Secondary School Consortium Maine 2016 Award winners. This is an annual award based on champion work aligned with proficiency and the development of flexible learning pathways. Certainly, these two incredible examples of thoughtful, dedicated educators who are daily making a difference in the lives of students. I know that their work is seldom easy, but their dedication to the implementation is a shining example for others to follow. So they're going to be honored, recognized at a national conference down in Massachusetts on March 17th and 18th, and there'll be over 1,000 people in attendance. And so I just wanted to recognize Chris Howell and Christine Hessler for the work that they've done to help lead this work. It's nice for people to get recognized, and I just thought I would share that. And I think that's it for tonight.
Great, thank you. Kate, SEA?
The SEA, Sebago Ed Alliance, as you know, its role has been reduced with no longer having the Alliance School. Still meets regularly once a month. I think trying to find its focus and its way. There's been discussion, currently this year we pay $5,000 in the budget for our membership into it. And there's been some discussion, I don't believe there's been a determination that that would be reduced to 2,500. I think we did, I think you guys did vote on it to reduce it to 2,500. Eric had mentioned the tech camp, and that is really kind of the bulk of the programming right now. Focusing, we didn't have one last summer. Focusing on students, there doesn't really seem to be a need for a tech camp because there's other offerings that staff can take advantage of, but putting that back on would be a nice boost for students who are interested in that. And then there was a discussion about technology use and what folks are, within the SEA, folks are considering moving forward as far as devices. And as you know, I sent that in my email to you just for your information. So it's computer technology. We all know it's an expensive, big ticket item. It's an essential item. And I was pleased that there was a discussion about what people are using and why, so that's it.
Great, thank you. Did I miss any committees? I don't think so. Great. Okay, we will move on to board roundtable, and of course, this is when the board has the opportunity to address the community, give comments, thoughts, thank yous, whatever. We'll start with Dawn.
And I have nothing.
Nothing for me.
Nor for me.
I actually do, and I don't usually, but
I know.
I'm pretty impressed with our athletic department and our students in sports because both the boys and the girls high school basketball teams were awarded the Sportsmanship Award. And to me, that's probably more important than any win they might have. So I think it speaks volumes about our students, it speaks volume about our coaches and our athletic director, and our school culture as a whole. So I was most impressed that we received those awards.
Excellent. Diana?
No, I don't have anything.
Terry? Eric?
Well, it's not school-related, but it is school-related because it's all of our students, but, and Raymond as well, but the Wyndham Basketball League is just coming through its playoffs, just getting done, and I had a chance to work with sixth graders this year, and there was a number of teams, boys and girls, and what a great group of kids. And the reason I bring it up is because we had a discussion with the kids about that very thing, where the high school had been winning those sportsman awards. They've been doing very good in athletics, but just as important, if not more important, was that good sportsmanship, and we talked about what that meant. And you should see the kids rushing to help another teammate up, or another team player up when they fell. And so they really, listened to that, and it was kind of neat to see.
Great.
That is great. Sierra? When's the next luncheon?
It's March 17th.
St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, they're gonna have corned beef? I just thought I'd ask. I got excited for a second. I don't think, yeah, maybe. I guess, I just wanted to say, well, it's all the schools, but I was in the primary school yesterday, and, of course, this is Dr. Seuss. I know because I had to read Green Eggs and Ham. Anyway, and little kids running around in pajamas and crazy hats, and a lot of staff running around in the same things, too. I think it's great that the whole environment there is kind of like a one-for-all type of thing. You know what I mean? It's not like an us and a them, and we're the teachers, we're the staff. Therefore, you have to do what you're told. We're above you, etc. It's kind of like they have those times where it's like everybody feels like they're like all the same age, kind of. So I think it's just great, and I find that when I go into like all the schools, whether it be RES, Manchester, of course, I don't see that in high school, but I don't expect to see the high school kids running around like that. So I think it's again, it's kind of like with sports. I think it's same thing with everything, even in the arts, and you get to the chamber singers. There's this whole camaraderie thing that goes on. So they're a bigger part of the community. It's kind of like they've taken this whole community thing, and it's in the schools, and it just speaks volumes. So I want to thank everybody, and I will thank all the adults, because it's mostly the adults that make it happen, and the kids, I'm sure, are the ones that benefit. So that's all I have for that. So with that, I'll take an adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
What do you mean?
It's so early.
Oh, I know.
Turn your buttons off. Turn your buttons off.
I'm so used to it being